Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Zan Tyler podcast, where our goal is to help you thrive in your homeschool journey. Before we begin today's episode, I just want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen or watch, including YouTube, and leave us a good review if this podcast has encouraged you. Leaving a review helps other homeschool parents like you find our podcast. And as always, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Today, we're doing something a little different. A little while ago, we hosted a Facebook Live party to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Zan Tyler podcast, but we never actually released that on the podcast. So I hope you will enjoy today's recording as we talk to Ginny Yurich, Michelle Moody, Lanissa James, Eugenia Chisholm, Todd Wilson, Caleb, our producer, Kareem, Morato, my grandson, John Lucas, Joe, my husband, and Nancy, my dear friend, who is a vital part of this podcast. We have a lot to celebrate. And most of all, we celebrate you. And thank you for being such an important part of our first year of podcasting. We hope you'll stay with us for what's coming up in 2024. Thanks.
When my family started our homeschooling journey, there were so many decisions to make, but one of our best decisions was choosing to use BJU Press Homeschool. I've never seen my kids so excited to get textbooks before. I'm amazed by how interesting and interactive the lessons are. My kids actually look forward to them. We use the online video lessons for all our courses, but I know some families choose to teach from the textbooks. What I love is that I can trust BJU Press to uphold our values. The Bible and biblical principles are woven throughout each subject. I'll admit, I was a bit nervous when I started homeschooling, but I've found a wonderful online community of other BJU Press homeschool families and consultants. The Homeschool Hub also makes my job easier. I can set up our schedules and rearrange them with just a few clicks. On the dashboard, I can see each of my kids' progress, and the assignments page shows me quickly what's ready for me to check or grade. I'm glad my son's biology assignments are automatically graded. BJU Press Homeschool has given us the tools and confidence to homeschool our children. For more information, do what I did and visit the BJU Press Homeschool website or talk with your local HomeWorks consultant.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our first anniversary celebration for the Zan Tyler podcast. I just want to thank Nancy Manos and Eugenia Chisholm for being the team at the scene that's making this all happen. So thank you so much, Nancy. It's good to have you here. You've been my partner in crime ever since the podcast started.
This is so exciting. I am so proud of you and just this endeavor. It's been fun to be part of it this whole year and to see all the amazing things that God has done and all the things that you and I have both learned, and just to see how God has used people that you already know, these experts and amazing people in the homeschool world that have shared their stories. And so this is going to be fun to celebrate. This is a milestone worth celebrating, and I'm really excited to be part of the 1-year anniversary.
Well, thank you so much. And we have had a great year. It's funny how fast this happened. We started talking about it in May of last year, and on August 9th, we went live. And so we're so thankful for all of you who have made it a successful year for the podcast. And, numbers mean a lot with podcasts, but the main thing we're looking for is encouraging homeschooling moms and dads and kids in their journey. So as long as someone's been encouraged, that's amazing for us.
I want to ask you a question, Zan.
Okay.
So it's been a year. How did you feel when you started the podcast versus how do you feel after a year? What has this year-long journey been like?
Well, the first part of it was just, and we're going to talk to Ginny Yurich in a minute, because Ginny was such a great influence on me in terms of encouraging me for months and months to do a podcast. And then I had a funny thing happen that kind of really put me over the edge. And we had Mike Knott, who is my big boss, and BJU Press BJU Press Homeschool come in as a sponsor. So it's been a lot of things falling in place. But boy, Nancy, for you and me, it's really been a learning curve. I feel like this is my sweet spot. I love people. I've been in homeschooling for 30 plus years. And so I have a lot of friends who have done a lot of amazing things in homeschooling. A lot of people know a lot of people with great stories to share. Every mom has a great story to share, I believe, and every mom is important in God's kingdom. And so it's just been a matter of the technology is always the biggest hurdle for me. But I have I have our producer, Caleb, and we'll be talking to him in a minute. And I have my husband who, unfortunately for him, lives here and takes care of my technology. And so, but I've never gotten tired of it. I've never thought, what are we going to talk about next week? It's just, I think that's been the biggest blessing of it. It's been a lot more work than I expected, but it's been a lot more fun, I guess, more rewarding than I expected to.
And I feel like our friendship has grown so much deeper just serving together in this way, and me getting to support you behind the scenes and just to be part of this has been really exciting. What has been the most surprising thing to you about podcasting?
I went into this pretty quickly and I had no idea of how many hours I could spend a week on one podcast. So if I have a guest like Ginny, who's written books and she has a new book coming out, that means I read her book and I go to her website and I look at her on social media and I watch other podcasts she's done.
Sure.
So I try to do that with every guest to get an idea of what their message is and what their heart is. And, and really just learning and researching. I love to read and research anyway. But fun. I love every part of it.
Like, you've inspired me to go listen to more people and to read more. And so you'll mention, like, I just read so-and-so's book in preparation for this podcast, and then I'll want to go learn more. So it's been inspiring to me, even as a graduated homeschool mom. Zan, I'm going to remove myself and watch from the background as you welcome your first guest.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nancy. Hey, Jenny.
Hi, congratulations.
Thank you. If you were here, I'd know I'd get the biggest hug. Jenny gets the best hugs. She's
only for you, Zan. Only for you.
Pick me up and twirl me around. I've never felt so loved in my life. We were in Michigan together and it was cold. I needed a good hug. So, Jenny, I just want to thank you because you started talking to me probably a year or more before we started podcasting. And you kept saying, Zan, you got to do a podcast. You got to do a podcast. You were relentless. And, but it really got me thinking about it and praying about it. Mike Knott came to me with Homeworks by Precept and he said, hey, let's talk about this thing. BJU Press Homeschool came forward as a sponsor, and Caleb is our producer. Nancy does social media. So the whole team just not fell into place. It was a lot of work and a lot of commitment. But, I'd have never been ready for that if it hadn't been for you. And I really, really appreciate you so much.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. It worked out. And it seems like the people were meant to be there and meant to be in those spots. And what a team that you've built. It's so cool to see what you and Nancy have done together, and Caleb and all of these people that you've talked to. Okay, I just had one of my kids go grab me a balloon.
That's awesome.
It's Bluey. You had a balloon and Nancy's background was all partyish. So I was like, okay, I need something. Here we go.
So, Jenny, you are a podcaster extraordinaire. How did you get into podcasting?
Well, I got into it because someone asked me. I had started one a couple years back, but it wasn't the right season. So that's a big thing. I think when you're a homeschool mom, you need to know that you're not walking away from your life. You're not walking away from yourself. You may be for a short period of time. And there's maybe a period of time where you can't get to kind of what your heart is calling you to. It's going to come later. And so I had started a podcast in my basement. I would put a little microphone hooked to my phone and I would just sit and talk to it for 20 minutes. But then the babies would be crying. It didn't work. And so I just left it there for a while. And I don't know, a year and a half later, 2 years later, someone messaged and was like, "Hey, I have a book coming out. Can I be on your podcast?" And I was thinking, well, like, I don't really have one. Like, I have one kind of, but I don't really have one. So I said yes, so because I thought, what a neat thing to be able to come alongside someone who's launching a book, who's taken their life's learnings and putting it out into the world. And Zan, I was so nervous. I was so mad at myself for saying yes. So mad. But it started there and then it just grew. And I think it's really cool to look at the people that you've had on. You've had these 50 plus episodes and all these people that your life has intersected with on a deeper level because you've had this deep conversation with them and you're partnering with them with their message. And that part of it is really awesome.
You are so right about that because, like you are my dear friend. Nancy is my dear friend. Eugenia, who's in the background for us today, is my dear friend. And 50 dear friends have been on with me this year. But when you really study somebody else's message and prepare for a conversation with them, it's amazing how much more invested in them you become. Like, I feel like I know you 10 times more than I did before. So I just have to say this. Your book, 1,000 Hours Outside, has been revolutionary for so many moms. And you were my very first podcast after it, really encouraging me to do it. And it was so great to start with a message that says, here's somebody and one idea that can revolutionize your homeschooling if you're struggling. So I want to thank you for your message and for being my first guest. And
Oh, it's such an honor. What a cool thing. I'm so proud of you.
and
Look how far you
encouraging
brought
me.
it.
Jenny, if you have one piece of advice you would like to give homeschool moms and dads or homeschool kids,
Well, I can't say anything besides go outside, right? It
say
would be
it.
off brand to say go outside. I think you got to give yourself grace as a homeschool parent. The biggest thing that I talk about is when I talk to homeschool audiences is the fact that this does not have to take all that much time. And so you can do your lessons, you can use your BJU homeschool press materials, you can do your lessons and spend a little bit of time on it, but the rest of it's free. You are free to learn and to grow and to learn alongside your kids, to journey alongside of them. I think that kids thrive at home and that the parent is the best teacher for the child. And so it's going to be a good year. And even if you have bad days, you would be having bad days otherwise too. That's the thing. I taught public high school for 5 or 6 years. I taught junior high before that. And parents still had bad days because there would be some, hard things and kids are struggling with and no one can get to the bottom of what's going on. And so there's no sort of easy path. Parenting is hard. And so even if you have hard days when you homeschool, know that that's not out of the realm of normal. I give way too many answers.
No, you don't, because we've got a few more minutes. One thing I love, Jenny, is your story about how frustrated you were as a mom and you felt like a terrible mom. And the outdoors, the Lord brought the outdoors to your rescue. And I think that's a great story worth telling if you don't mind telling that real quickly.
Yeah, I was just struggling with it. And I think partially it was due to the fact that I felt like I was failing from dawn to dusk and then through the night.
And
You have little ones and they
you
have a
had
lot of
3
needs.
littles at that point?
3 little ones, 3 under 3, and you're just having I was having a very hard time. And so what ended up happening was having an expansive period of time outside, 4 hours, which is what Charlotte Mason was recommending all the way back in the 1800s. It really changed my whole mothering experience because when you go outside for an extended period of time, everyone finds respite and everyone learns and everyone grows and everyone's happy for a period of time. And so it really was something that is was foundational for those early mothering years. But now our kids, now Zan, we're 12 years into this. It's way down the road and it still works. It still provides a way for me to be present with our older kids. I don't need it anymore as much for the respite. They're not crying, they're not up in the night,
Right,
that type of thing.
right.
But also, it's really busy. And you know that, Zan. You get older kids and you could be running all the time. You could be driving to this, driving to that, and never really connecting, and also never really slowing down. And so I think it's so amazing how God provided his creation that works for infants, and it works when you're 99 years old, and it works all the way throughout those years.
You are so right. Where can people find you?
So everything is 1000 Hours Outside. We have a website, 1000hoursoutside.com, social media, we have an app.
Ginny, just thank you again so much for everything you've been in my life. And I know you have done that for thousands of people, just spoken into their lives. What a legacy and what a testimony you are.
Congratulations.
I love you. Bye. I think we might be waiting for Michelle. Hey, Michelle.
How are you? Happy anniversary.
Thank you. So, everybody, I want to introduce you to Michelle Moody. Michelle and I have worked together over the years on lots of different projects and gone to lots of different conferences together and just shared life together in so many ways. So, Michelle, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm so thrilled that you have this podcast. Like you said, we have known each other for a long time. We've been to a lot of conferences. I think I've heard you speak live probably 25 to 30 times.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And if you haven't heard Zan speak live at a conference, you have to.
Thank you so much. Michelle was our 18th episode, and the name of her podcast was The Transformative Power of Following Your Child's Interest. So give us some of your best advice for homeschool moms, but I love the idea that you always have of following the interest of your child as you educate them.
That's a big thing that we did. I think I shared the story about how for the first two and a half years, I bored my son to tears in our homeschool. And I finally just looked at him and said, what is it you want to study? And we just did that. And so I really, encourage parents to really look at what your child's doing in their spare time. My son was drawing robots with lasers, and, he kind of does that now as a living. And so something that they were doing when they were 4 or 5 years old, it can really, one thing leads to another, and it just goes to the next level, and the next level as they get older, and they just take ownership of it. We don't want it to be us projecting on them but we want them to take ownership, and they will, if this is something they're passionate about. So I really encourage parents to do that sometimes. I look at us as not just teachers, but we're kind of facilitators and mentors, especially as they get older. We help them find those opportunities. We look for unusual field trips or books that they might be interested in reading that's, aligns with what they're interested in. God gave our kids so many different talents, and really, we are tasked with helping them find those talents and developing them and feeling confident enough with their abilities. I think self-confidence is a big piece of it.
Well, that is so huge. Real quick, tell us a little bit about Homeschool Scientist, because I know that that's where people can find you now.
Yeah, I'm at the homeschoolscientist.com, and I just kind of fell into that. It was an unexpected path that my life took, and we love to just develop activities for kids that are hands-on, that are easy to implement. One of the things I hear a lot from moms is they don't know where to start. They want their kids to do more science, or their kids tell them, I'm bored, I want something to do, and they're really looking for something kind of hands-on and sciencey for their kids to do. So we try to give moms and dads a place to start with that if they're feeling a little intimidated. We've got a lot of just free resources to come alongside parents in their curriculum if they want to take a day to do a science afternoon with the family or whatever. So we're just there to add some fun, to your day, to your homeschool.
We were together in Greenville at the BJU Press Homeschool Biblical Worldview Foundation. And you had just been in Bangladesh on a 3-week missions trip.
In 2019, I actually went to Bangladesh and lived there for several months and taught. And of course, we taught Bible. And then I also taught robotics. We took over some Lego kits and some We Do kits. We had gotten donations from all over, from homeschool groups, from churches, and taught them robotics. They had never even seen Legos. So it was a lot of fun. And then I've been back several times since then to the same village school to work with the kids and do a little bit of science, teach a little Bible, do what the Lord's called me to do.
That's amazing. I know how many Legos you collected to go over there and teach science. To go over there and share the gospel with all those kids, that's really amazing. Michelle, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today, being my friend through thick and thin, and having so much great wisdom to share from your life. It is so much fun to share this anniversary with my friends who made, in so many ways, the podcast possible by being guests. Hey, Lanissa.
Hey, Zan. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good. It's so good to see you.
Yes, again.
We just got to see each other in Maryland. Tell everybody what we were doing in Maryland together.
Yes, Zan, you were just here. I was telling the family, I'm going to be live with Zan. They thought you were coming to the house, Zan. I was like, my kids were all excited, right? But Zan was just here in Maryland, and she was our keynote for our MACHI, Maryland Association of Christian Home Educators. We had a high school seminar, and Zan, you were just amazing. You're living life in your sweet spot, my friend.
So tell us quickly about your goal as outreach director for the Black community at HSLDA. And about being a high school counselor. I think both of those things are so important.
Yes. And like you said, I do have a lot of roles. I think all of my arrows are going in one direction, in that it's about, God, family, and homeschool freedom.
Yes.
And when it comes down to homeschool freedom, I'm blessed to be one of the high school educational consultants at HSLDA. Helping, we have 100,000 members, lots of high school parents who are calling, want to know how to do high school and how to do it well. And an extension of that is also helping the Black community. And so I get to travel around the nation, helping pockets of Black homeschoolers and helping them understand what homeschool freedom is all about. And so it's just a fun opportunity there. We're just having a blast.
I think during COVID is when homeschooling really started to explode in the Black community.
The Black community was probably the highest people group of growing homeschoolers during COVID. And just like many people who are homeschooling during the pandemic, so many people in the Black community learned that there's a better way. I've been homeschooling almost 20 years, but there are people who have just gotten started in homeschooling. And so we've just been really trying to ramp up the support to new Black homeschoolers nationwide. And so you can find me at hslda.org. We love helping homeschoolers. Of course, my lanissajames.com is below. I have my own website, and just the James Party of we used to be the James Party of 9, Zan, but we're the James Party of 17. Pray for us,
Yes.
okay?
Tell us where those other 8 figures came from.
They're puppies. We have multi-poo puppies. So our puppies had 8 puppies. We went from spending $20,000 in private education to $500 in homeschool books, and we've just never turned back. And having 7 kids, I'm very passionate about helping people homeschool through high school. So if you're watching, I know you said some tips for our homeschool moms out there.
Yes, give us your favorite tip.
Yeah. So my favorite tip is keeping the fun in home education, finding the community that makes you smile, and finding the support that takes you to a finish line. I will tell you, it's great homeschooling my littles, because I have a 2nd grader and I have a middle schooler. But I will tell you, when you can homeschool through high school, the relationships will last a lifetime.
It is about academics, but it's about academics that are built on a strong, firm relationship with your parents and your grandparents and your children. And I mean, it's amazing, isn't it, the way relationships flourish in your home?
We are blessed to have lived through when my kids were being able to homeschool alongside of their 94-year-old grandmother, great grandmother. That
Wow.
was their great
Wow.
grandmother.
That's
And I'm
amazing.
really excited that my grandmother's coming and she's 90. And so people are like, are you homeschooling? Yep, it's just history. Sit down and have a conversation with your great grandmother. And it's a blessing to be able to have freedom in education, to have your education really mirror what's going on in your family. So we're going to have a whole week with their great grandmother, and there's just nothing more precious than that.
That's amazing. Lanissa, I want to say this real quickly before you go. Ginny Yurich is on the state board for Michigan homeschoolers. And then Lanissa is helping revive Machi in Maryland, a state homeschooling organization there. And we just think state orgs are so important because they're a basis for support and they're the gateway of freedom and the keepers of freedom for homeschool freedom together with HSLDA. So Lanissa, I just want to say that your episode was number 7, and we just released it when we went to the National Leadership Conference last year, the Alliance, and also HSLDA National Leadership Conference. And that was so fun for me to learn all the facets of your life, which we can't do justice to in 5 or 10 minutes now. So I want to encourage people to go back and listen to the podcast we did together. Lanissa, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Zan. Congratulations. There's not a better party than the 1-year party. And congratulations on your podcast and the way you are sharing. It's so exciting to see you in your sweet spot. And I know that many years to come, you'll have some amazing guests. So
thank you for taking the time to be here. I love you so much.
Love you too. Bye for now.
Hey, Zan. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. You know, one of the things that you have talked about, I innumerable times, is the importance of relationships. We teach our kids science and math and grammar and history and geometry and geography and all the things, but it's really about the relationships that we have with our kids and discipling them to know and love the Lord. And so just share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Nancy. It is, and it's such a core thing about what you share and really for what all of us here today believe in. And that is that the Lord has given us children. They are a blessing from the Lord. And our first goal is to love them, lead them to Christ, help them understand they're made in the image of God and what that means. I mean, a 2-year-old can understand that in a 2-year-old way, and a 20-year-old can understand that in a 20-year-old way. And so as we develop their identity around Christ and we have community in our family, we can help them discover their God-given purposes, their giftings, their learning styles, their spiritual gifts, their, the reason that God has put them on the earth. And so I think we're just in discovery mode with our children, helping them discover how God made them, not just so they can be selfish about it, but so they can use their gifts to serve others and glorify God. So I love books. I love curriculum. And I just want to take a minute to thank our sponsor again, BJU Press, Homeschool, and Homeworks by Precept for giving us a curriculum that's based on biblical values. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute with Eugenia. Biblical worldview, easy for parents in so many ways, and the support from consultants. I'm passionate about this is the love your kid movement, as Jim Mason said in one of his articles, another guest on the podcast. So
awesome. Okay, I'm going to go and Eugenia's going to come in.
Hey, lady.
Hey, my friend. How are you?
I am good. Congratulations. See, it just flew by just like that, didn't it?
Oh, I didn't.
And now we do what we do best in partying, right?
That is right. We have been on a few live event parties together in our day, haven't we?
Just a few, not many.
So tell us a little bit about the party you're in charge of twice a year.
We've already started on the next party, just planning and preparing, and we have over 10,000 in our group that attend our party, and we just have a good time. I mean, I put out like 10 or 15 sharing threads, and they're drawing threads where our community can share ideas with each other and encourage each other. And I just love to look through those threads at night. And then we have all kinds of speakers that you and I try to put together for everyone. And then our consultants, oh my goodness, they are just wonderful at helping our community out there. And they come in and speak and do workshops as well.
For those of you who don't know, the April party is 5 days, Monday through Friday, 11 to 7. The July party is 3 days, Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 7. And so, Eugenia, I know it's way too early for people to sign up for the April party, but just tell them, who sponsors it and how they can be on the lookout for that.
Well, it's all BJU Press. It's all sponsored by BJU Press Homeschool. That's who we represent. And if you stay tuned to our social media channels, but of course, our map link, if you go to homeschoolhelp.com and /map, that will tell you when that event is coming up. We usually will post that sometime in February, early March, when we're ready for the April party. And then usually when we're doing July, we post it around the 1st of July to let everybody know when that's coming so that they can plan. And of course, once you're in the party, you're registered for all the following parties.
You were a consultant for many years with Homeworks by Precept. And so if you're looking we were just talking about help and support. So if you're looking for help and support in your homeschooling venture, somebody to pray for you and somebody to help you learn how to use the BJU Press material and their amazing videos. I think you used a lot of their videos with your kids growing up. Tell people how they can find a consultant.
They can go to our map. That's at the homeschoolhelp.com /map. And you can click on your state, and there's light blue dots on all of those states. You can click on one of those and it'll connect you right with a consultant.
And so I just want to encourage everybody who's with us today, if you've ever had a hard day or a hard season with homeschooling, and if you haven't, you probably haven't been homeschooling, then I would really encourage you to go back and listen to Eugenia's episode. It was really encouraging, and it helps us all to feel like we don't have to be perfect homeschoolers, and we're not going to have perfect day after perfect day. But the Lord is going to meet us where we are, whether like Gina, you were caring for an elderly grandmother, or your husband had a new job, or, you just have days where you struggle. So,
yeah, and I would encourage you, take one day at a time. Self-care is important. Putting the Lord first is the most important. And then just be in the moment. Be in the moment with your child. That's really important to cherish each and every moment. The academics will come, but those moments you will never get back. So be in the moment.
Amen. Amen. Well, Eugenia, thank you for being here today and helping us. Thank you for being such an amazing friend.
I'm so excited for you, Zan.
Thank you so much, Eugenia. So I think now we are going to bring up one of my dear friends, and everybody is the family man. Hey, Todd Wilson.
Hey, it sounds like you're having a lot of fun already.
So, Todd, you are one of mine and Joe's favorite people, you and Debbie. We love y'all so much, and we love your message for families. We love the way you speak and encourage parents. Like, I know Todd needs no introduction here. You were my second guest. And you spoke about, making sure we don't kill or don't be a dream killer, I think is what it was.
Right. But the thing that really drives me is because I see so many people, especially maybe as homeschoolers, maybe just as parents, where we get so afraid of our children's dreams, or maybe it's not even their dreams. Sometimes they're upset that they don't have big enough dreams, or they're not having any dreams of what they might do in the future. There was a girl who came up to my wife this past summer. We were at a big homeschool state convention, and I think the daughter was about 19, and she asked what my daughter was doing. And my daughter Maggie, her ambitions are to be a mom and a wife, which are just wonderful ambitions. And so, but she was taking because she didn't know what she wanted to be or beyond that or do anything beyond that. So she was taking some classes on how to do fingernails. And the daughter, who was signed up to go to college, she said, that's what I always kind of wanted to do. I wish my parents would have let me, but and that was, because that wasn't maybe as good, or it didn't sound as good to say, yes, my daughter's going to be biomedical engineering. And sometimes, I guess I just want for my kids, I want for all the parents whose kids are listening, or for the parents who have children, to just be okay with the way God has made them, because it's a great thing for a child to hear his or her parents in the background cheering them on, because sometimes they do pick things that the world doesn't quite get, or they put it in different levels. It's okay to be this, but maybe not this. And I mean, I could probably sit here and tell story after story of children who just wanted their parents to be okay with what God had asked them to do, or maybe they just thought that was what they were supposed to do, and they weren't even sure if that's what God wanted them to do. But just in the process, because who knows what you're supposed to be when you're 18.
Isn't that the truth?
Right.
That is the truth. So, Todd, one of the things I love that you talk about is that parents are the best teachers for their kids.
And I believe that with all my heart. I know every mom listening, really, including you, thinks that's wrong. And they may say it, and they know that truth, but deep inside they have this, I think it's the enemy whispering in their ears that say, are you sure? Are you sure they wouldn't be better off if somebody else were doing it? Are you sure they wouldn't be better off if you weren't? And am
I ruining my kids instead of blessing them?
Exactly. Yes. And I'm like, and to me, an outside observer, I'm like, your kids are ahead just because they had you as their mom. Because God, and I'm not just basing that on because it's a cute little thing, because really it's a theological truth that I believe God gave your children exactly the mom they needed. And I just want to remind moms of that, because I think the enemy, through lots of voices, sometimes those voices sound like our best friend or some well-meaning mother-in-law, that sometimes we're not too sure if that is true.
When we first started homeschooling, we didn't know anybody in the world homeschooling, and I was threatened with jail. And every day there was a new person to pile on me about why I was ruining my kids.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was like I had this internal alarm clock set at 2 a.m. I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and Joe's my best bud, in addition to being my husband, So I know he wants to talk about this with me every day at 2 o'clock, So this
Joe barely wants to talk.
Not at 2 o'clock. That's right. So at one morning, this had been going about six weeks or 6 months. I don't know how long. Joe looks at me and he says, Zanny, Jesus is always awake. In other words, but it hurt my feelings, but it really did change my prayer life, because I would get up every morning and just pray until the Lord gave me strength and peace. And so, we need to pray. We need people like you speaking those positive things into our hearts and minds, where that conversation's always going.
And really, that's why I talk to dads and to other moms, because I think we need each other to remind each other of that truth all the time.
Well, Todd, where can people find you?
Well, they can find me at thesmilinghomeschooler.com. Or if you have a husband who needs some encouragement, they can come to familymanweb.com.
When I was growing up, I grew up in a good Southern family.
I can tell the way you say July.
July, that's right.
I was hoping you just say it a couple more times, because it's fun to hear you say it.
Do it. You're just jealous.
I know it.
But my mother would always tell us, you can say anything you want to your sisters, but you have to say it with a smile. Now, I'm not saying this is the best advice, but we'd say, I hate you, Sybil.
Right.
Say, well, I don't like you. So then we'd be laughing. You can't say mad. But I can remember being in the legislature, And they would always say, Zan, no matter if the world was falling down around you, you were always smiling. And I wanted to say, yes, that was my default trait as a Southern girl, but so every time I see the smiling homeschooler, it makes me happy.
That's good. That's what we want. That's what we want.
Well, Todd, thank you for putting up with all my frantic texts and emails, because you always make it a party. Thank you, Todd.
Bye, everybody.
Oh my gosh, he's so fun.
I know, it's great.
I was reminded, thinking Caleb's next, that the one time I've been a guest on your, or co-hosted or whatever, several times on your podcast, and Caleb had encouraged me to wear headphones or earbuds or whatever, and I had AirPods. And I was just recovering from a cold, if you remember. It was before we were doing video, thank goodness. And I started coughing. So I kept muting myself while you kept talking. I coughed so hard, the AirPod went flying out of my ear, and it disconnected me from so poor Caleb's in the back, like, what's happening? And I just, we've had some funny moments about, like, in the background that we've laughed about, and it's been a lot of fun, not for those reasons necessarily, but I love that we laugh, whether it's a phenomenal day or a challenging day. And I just love that you find joy in all that you do to serve and encourage parents. And so thanks for letting me be part of it.
Oh my goodness, Nancy, we could not do this without you. I know Caleb will attest to that when he comes on.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm so good. This is so comfortable to me, because this is my 9 to 5 is hanging out with you. So, there's more people watching right now. That's the only difference. This feels very normal.
That's right. Usually it's just you, me, and Nancy, and Joe.
That's right, and Joe. Joe's usually off to the side, and then he saunters in. So
yeah. So Caleb is my producer. He was also the producer of the Homeschool Awakening, a homeschool movie. And but Caleb, you have been so remarkable to work with.
Oh, stop it!
So much. And I know I haven't been the easiest cookie to work with.
That is, ladies and gentlemen, that is not true. Zan is a dream. All my kids know her.
So Caleb decided to homeschool when he was making a movie about homeschooling. Before that, he said, no way, Jose.
Yeah, I did think homeschool was a fringe thing for crazy people, because I didn't understand what homeschooling was. I thought that was just for people who like to go to the courthouse and try to get bills passed that allow them to homeschool, like, those nutcases. No, those are my heroes now. I would say a lot that I've learned is from your guest. One, you've been teaching them since they were born. So no matter what you think, you are always qualified to teach your children. That's a big one. I think there's a lie that you are unqualified, and you are absolutely qualified to be a homeschool parent. 2, Melanie Wilson, episode 52. You should listen. She said something really powerful about the Word of God and homeschooling, and that Jesus is very clear that the Word of God, it's the bread of life. He relates his words and the words of the Father to food frequently, right? It's a big thing. And so Melanie Wilson said something really great. She said, you don't just eat at 5 o'clock in the morning and sustain yourself. You need to snack and eat all day long. And I think that is so true with homeschooling. So being in the Word in the morning, but then sprinkling the Word throughout the entire day. I think a third one, this is just a nerd, is Alex Newman, episode 45. Then I learned that homeschooling is it's a right, but it's also a privilege, and rights are frequently taken away. I learned from Alex that really the whole country was homeschooled and kind of Christian private schooled until the public school was invented. And slowly, eventually, the core natural way to educate our children, the parents, became illegal. So I learned that never take what we have for granted. And this might sound a little political, but I think it's really important. You need to be involved. This freedom can be taken away, because this is a privilege, and it's like the best privilege. But yep, those are my big 3.
Oh, that's great, Caleb. Well, listen, I cannot thank you enough for helping me and teaching me.
It has been probably some of the most rewarding work I've ever done in my entire life. So it is a privilege. It's an honor to work with Nancy, and it's an honor to work with you. I'm going to reiterate that Nancy crushes it with show notes and descriptions, and we work as a fluid team, just doing our best to help moms, dads, grandparents, and kids. 10 more years. 10 more years.
And that's right. And thank you, Caleb. Thank you for everything. Give Stephanie and the kids a hug. Now I think we have Kareem Murado coming up. Hey, Kareem.
Oh, hey, where is the piñata?
Oh,
You have a piñata?
I know. I should have gotten a piñata. My grandson, who is here to come on board in a minute, would have loved it.
I know. Congratulations. Bravo.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias. You know, you're the only person I ever speak Spanish to out loud in public. You have been in Bolivia, my friend. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. I was thinking so much about you, Zan, because these parents were so inspiring listening to their conversations and saying, if we have to go to jail, we will go to jail to defend our rights to homeschool. So it just reminded me so much about you. And I was like, we need to get that book translated in Spanish so they can read it.
Oh, thank you so much. Kareem is one of my dear, dear friends. She's the cultural outreach director for the Hispanic community at HSLDA. And so we have been involved. BJU Press Homeschool sponsored a Hispanic summit where we brought in Hispanic leaders from around the country and just met for a couple of days. But just tell us a little bit about your heart for homeschooling.
Oh, wow. So my heart starts with my own children. I mean, it's just this full circle where my husband gave me the crazy idea to homeschool my kids. And I was like, where did you get that crazy idea? Idea loca. And he's like, from Bolivia. And I was like, Bolivia? And then he told me missionaries in Bolivia, when they go to Bolivia, they never send the kids to school, and they homeschool. They do the work that God calls them to do, and they stay home with their kids. And that's how I was introduced to the concept of homeschooling. And now imagine 30 years later, we go back as a homeschool ambassador. So that's our heart. Our heart is not that, telling parents homeschooling is not a system. It's, a way of life to live as a family, learn, and really not be about your limitations as a parent, but as the potential that your kids have. And that has been our testimony. When people see my kids, I really have nothing to say about homeschooling. I just need to show my kids. I know that my kids are perfect. My kids are not perfect. They're very imperfect. But people want to know, how did you do it? Everybody knows that Spanish is my first language.
That's right.
My second. And so, usually when people see you, oh, you have an accent and you are not from here, they see your limitation and they don't see, okay, this is not about your limitation. It's about your kids' potential. But then they see the kids and they're like, how did you do it? So that's my message. My message is, right, here in the United States is for Hispanics to share the message. There is another way to educate your children. And then outside international, it's parents learning. The government is not the only way to educate your kids. Private school is not the only way. There are other ways. And that's a completely new concept for the Hispanic culture.
Kareem, y'all have done such a good job of getting the word out. I love the podcast we did together. And I'm just going to give people the name and the number of the podcast. It was episode 18, Hispanic Homeschooling, Culture and Community. And you talked a lot about generations working together. And so it's not, the thing I love about you, Kareem, when you talk about your culture and you talk about generations learning together, we all benefit. This is not, you have not shut yourself off from people from other communities. And you have taught me, you've brought communities together. And I love that about you. And I hope people will go back and listen to your podcast.
But I'm going to tell you one thing that is culturally, we Latinos like food, right?
Yes.
So I say that when you look at your schedule that are, have a schedule and say no to distractions, say yes to family experiences and learning experiences that are meaningful. But, make sure that you reserve a space to eat at least one meal together. Hispanics, we are all about being together, eating together a lot. And that's one thing that my husband and I, always protected. We protected our schedule to have margin, breathing time. And that meant that we needed to have at least one meal together every day. It was non-negotiable. And that, and the kids, they don't remember the subjects, everything they learn, but they do remember that one meal that we have every day together, eating together and talking and connecting. And, I think that homeschooling without connection is just a school, and you don't want to have school. You want to have connection. So I just want to share that piece of advice. That's my Latina heart, my Latina stomach. My kids are Latinos. They like to eat well, but take that advantage. They're having that opportunity to homeschool and have a flexible schedule to make sure you share that one meal together and have time to connect.
Amen. Hold on, Kareem. I want you to meet my grandson. Come over here, John.
Hi.
How'd you get your name?
Oh my God! Don't ask me. My mom got it from a newspaper. Can you believe it? It's nothing inspirational.
From Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I know. It's like, that look cute.
Hey, listen, Kareem. Thank you so much for being with us.
And they can follow me on Instagram.
Okay, good.
Morato.Kareem. Follow me, and you will find what I am doing with the Hispanic community and leaders and what's happening there. Thank you for having me. Adios.
Adios. John Lucas is my 11-year-old grandson. And so, John Lucas, you surprised me one day by telling me.
So one day, I think we were in the car, right? So I had been listening to my grandmother's podcast for a while, and we were in the car, and I think you were talking about it, and we bring it up, and I was like, oh yeah, I listen to your podcast. It's really great. I can just relax and listen to it. So it's a really great thing to get into,
So I was just so shocked that my 11-year-old grandson was listening to my podcast. So I think he might be my most faithful viewer. And it means so much to me, John Lucas, that you listen. You know how much I love you. So I don't mean to embarrass you on the air, but I'm still going to hug you and love you. So tell them who your favorite podcast guest was.
I liked a lot of them, but I think what hit me most was like the Heidi St. John. I just loved learning about homeschooling and that perspective and how I could just sit down and learn.
Hey, John Lucas, thank you so much. I'm going to bring Joe on board.
Please sit in your lap.
Yeah, JoJo, you come over here. So, JoJo, what do you think about the podcast?
I think it's great. I mean, this medium is really incredible to think that you can, in your own home at your desk, do something that goes worldwide. You're like number 4 in Albania, right?
Honduras, Albania, and we've been ranked in Japan and Canada. I mean, it's
really hilarious.
It's really fun to get on there and see the reach from home.
I know. It is really amazing.
I think the thing that it means the most to me, Joe, is the way you talk with me about each of our guests. So many of the people we have on the podcast are friends we have in common. And so I love that sometimes Joe will just pop in and ask a few questions and then pop back out. And then we have a couple of podcasts that we've done together, one about our story. And then there was another one we did together on our story, just our homeschooling story of, how we were threatened with jail and all of that. And then there's another one.
Well, that is the thing. Anybody, no matter how mundane, common, simple their lives seem to be, have incredible stories, because the way God works in our hearts and brings us to a place is miraculous. Glad to do
this without you.
Thanks for writing the script for me. You made me sound very human.
Joe. Joe makes us all laugh. It's amazing. This has been really fun. What a fun way to celebrate 1 year.
And I thank each one of you who have listened to the podcast and encouraged me to keep going. Thank you so much. I believe that each one of you are a vital part of God's kingdom, and thank you for being here with me today.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Zan, for all you do, and we'll see you in a little while, I'm sure.
Thanks, y'all. God bless, and we will see you again on the podcast.